Hi everyone, this is Jim. Welcome to this postmortem of my Blitz game number 584. I had the white pieces and played e4, and my opponent played c5, and we get into a Sicilian defense. I have to say at the beginning that this game was kind of crazy, but it starts out normal enough. Knight f3, d6, d4, going for the open Sicilian, takes. And now the most common move by far is knight f6, putting a little pressure on this pawn and encouraging me to bring out this knight to c3 and blocking the c pawn. And doing that prevents the Maroczy bind setup. If you're not playing that way, an alternative is to play with knight c6. It allows the Maroczy bind, but it puts a little pressure on the center. This early a6 is a very rare move here. Now, I called this an O'Kelly Sicilian during the game, but it's not really. If we go back to move 2, I think it is. Yeah, a6 on move 2 here. That's the O'Kelly Sicilian. So I remembered that the O'Kelly Sicilian had something to do with an early a6, but it's actually right here. Anyway, in this position, a6 gives me the chance to play c4, and that leads to a very comfortable position for white. After a few more moves, let's see, he goes knight f6 now, I defend, and then he plays e6, top choice in this position. And actually we've transposed into a position that's a little bit more common. And there's other ways to get into the Maroczy bind. So this is an okay position for black. The engine prefers white in these positions, but usually black is pretty solid. So nothing horrible has happened here, really, in spite of this somewhat high evaluation in white's favor. So let's go on a few moves. We get the normal... oh, it's my turn here, bishop e2. We get the normal moves. Oh yeah, I actually played f3 here. Let's see. Yeah. So f3 is an okay move. It's not in the book here, but you'll see after I play it that we still are in known territory. These moves pretty much can be played in any order. It seems like there's no big tactics going on because he hasn't developed any pieces except for this knight, and as long as I keep this pawn covered, I'm pretty free. As long as I cover the e-pawn, I'm pretty free to develop my pieces as I please. And so I just go for this setup, starting with the f-pawn. You see we're still in known territory. Bishop e7, bishop e3, defending the knight, castles, bishop e2, knight bd7. I was expecting knight c6. Usually the knight shows up here. But there's some point to knight d7 supporting this knight and keeping the c-file open. And maybe the knight can hop into the game on e5 or c5. So not a bad move. I castle. And so I pretty much completed my setup for the Maroczy bind. The b-pawn can come to b3 or sometimes to b4 to chase a knight away if it goes to c5 and if it's not needed to support the c-pawn. And white can expand on the queen side, but normally it's more centrally focused. You centralize the rooks and lift the queen and just don't do anything too aggressive usually. You just try and place your pieces on good squares and see if black kind of runs out of moves. You're trying to sit on your space advantage and take advantage of it. I find it actually a difficult way to play, but I've been practicing this for a while and I've gotten okay at it. Although this game, I have to say, is not going to be a model for anybody's idea of how to play the Maroczy bind after a certain point. Let's see, queen d2. So far, so good. Knight e5. And b3, I choose to develop or support the pawn now with b3. He goes h6. I go rook to c1. And you see I'm still keeping this edge. And these moves are fairly easy to play. Notice that I can't... in this position, I can't play, I could, but it's not so great to play f4 because the knight can come in here to g4, harassing my bishop, supported by the other knight. So so in this particular configuration, he's kind of preventing or discouraging this move f4. But he plays knight fd7, and f4 right here would be a good move. And I want to show this line because it illustrates how a tactic similar to the one I played during the game can be very effective. So you play f4, kicking this knight, and now he doesn't have any good forward squares to go to. You can go back to g3, g6 here, but the most natural move is, even it looks like knight g6 fails to f5 actually. So knight c6 is the best move here. And now you have this tactic with knight d5. Thing is, you're hitting the queen, and if he takes the pawn, if he takes the knight, which is the best move, then you get your piece back. The knight is pinned, and this pawn is attacking it. So this leads usually to a good position for white. It's not immediately winning material here. What is the engine is suggesting knight c5. I see, blocking this file so that I can take the knight, and then knight takes e4, grabbing a pawn over here. So he's got some tricky moves here that still leaves white a little better. Let's see, queen to d3, maybe chasing this knight away. Knight back to c5, and c takes b7. Queen takes or bishop takes. Queen takes looks like is better, because otherwise his knight is pinned. And you'll see that since he managed to snag this e-pawn, which doesn't always happen. Let's see, and I have to drop my queen back to c2. He's got, and then he's got this weak pawn here. So I have an advantage. The material is even. You know, these two pawns against these two, and these three against these three, but his pawn structure is a little weaker than mine. Both sides have a bishop pair. Anyway, white's a little better in this position. So that's kind of tactic you can get in the Maroczy bind. I played knight d5 immediately, and I had a bit of a hallucination here, so I'll show you what I was thinking when we get there. Knight d5, he takes, I take with a tempo on the queen dropped back, and now I was planning to take the pawn on e6, except there is no pawn on e6 anymore, because that sequence started with that e-pawn, or the second move in that sequence was his e-pawn taking my knight. Anyway, but the idea was if he had a pawn there, I would take, he would take back, and then I could take with the knight and fork those two pieces. Not that one. Fork those two pieces and get some material back, a pawn and a rook for a couple of pieces, and kind of disrupting his king safety as well. So it looked like it would be interesting, but in this case, it's not so interesting because there is no pawn there, so I can't get any material back. In fact, I'm just down a piece for a pawn. But there is some kind of compensation here. I have the ownership of the C file, and so this would be -2 if this were no compensation, just a piece for a pawn. It would give it a valuation of -2. So I have some compensation, but not enough. So it's a unsound sacrifice. Let's see. He plays. I play knight f5 here, trying to go after the king side. He goes knight f6, and now I didn't feel like just playing normal moves like knight takes e7, and the chess engine recommendation might be a good move in other circumstances, but it would still leave me just down material. So I figured I needed to do something to justify my sacrifice, so I make another one, which is really completely unsound, but he didn't find the best move here. So this is interesting. The best way to refute this sacrifice is actually to take the knight. This knight right here is a dangerous piece, being around the king. And so it's better actually to take the knight than to take the bishop. Anyway, he took the bishop, which was a bit more natural, and I take back with the queen. And now I've got these mating threats here, which are pretty serious. Although he could defend the mate with just knight back to e8. That's an option here. But his best move is the move he played. Just take off that knight, get rid of those attacking forces around his king. And he really should go on to win this game. Let's see, he played knight d5, still keeping a material edge. I play f4. And at this point I'm down 2 pieces. But you'll see that the engine actually wants to give a piece back, which is something to keep in mind. If you're up 2 pieces, you can give a piece back and still have a winning game. And just move this rook to e8. Gives the king a flight square. Gives away this knight here. Interesting. Well, let's follow this line here because it doesn't show me taking the knight immediately. Rook e8, and now f takes e5 is one of the moves. Okay, that's what I thought. Take the knight here, and then bishop to g5, harassing my queen, and then taking the pawn with the rook. And black is still just a piece up in this position, so that would be reasonable way to play. Anyway, he played a very natural move here, but suddenly you see the evaluation changing, and this is all starting to look pretty good for, relatively good for white. Black is still better, but considering he's got 2 extra pieces, it's kind of amazing. The evaluation is only -1. That means I have enough of an attack here to get back one of the pieces and a pawn, maybe. So it's an interesting position once again, not just completely losing. I start off with rook f3, which is one of the moves, but bishop c4 or f6 are maybe a little more accurate, but it's still a good move. With the simple threat of checkmate. Always good to threaten checkmate. And he finds the only move that saves him. This is kind of nice. He played this part pretty well after making some terrible mistakes earlier. Bishop h4. I guess when there's only one move that saves you, there's a good chance your opponent will find it. I was thinking he was completely lost here, but bishop h4 covers the g3 square, so I can't mate anymore. So I go rook h3. I can at least win this bishop because he can't move it out of the way without getting mated. But he brings his queen into f6. Once again, the only move that keeps an advantage. So we found a couple of only moves here. I take here. And after this exchange, we're in an endgame where I have a bishop against 2 knights. And he's better because he has the extra piece. I have maybe 1 pawn extra. 1, 2, 2 against 2, and 4 against 2. Actually, I have 2 pawns extra, but it looks like he's going to maybe round up one of these pawns or something. Anyway, it's getting closer to even, but he should still be okay. And we'll go on a few moves and show where he makes his final mistake. So knight to f6 is okay. Let's see, I played rook to c3, bringing my other rook into the game. He plays his rook to e8, hitting my bishop. Let's see, rook to g3 check right away is the best way to continue. Oh, okay, that's what I played. I was going to say, somewhere along here I didn't quite play the best move. King f8. I think it's this move, bishop c4. Yeah, I was trying to get this into the attack, and it's hanging. But the engine wants me to play rook h8 check. Let's follow this line and see what's the best I could do here. Rook h8 check. King goes up. Now my bishop is safe. And rook e3 check. Yeah, I saw this, but I thought at the end I can't really win any material. The king steps aside. Yeah, the engine just wants me to exchange out. This is going to be exchanging out into a losing position, right? He's still got 2 knights for the bishop, but maybe there's some point. Now bishop c4, hitting this pawn. Oh, that's a point. He can't defend this pawn. Oh, he could play knight d8, but then, and that's the recommended move, but then his position is very passive. So it's funny. Yeah, this rook and knight are kind of dominating his pieces there. So interesting line by the chess engine. I played bishop c4 immediately, getting away from the rook and targeting some squares around his king. Seemed logical. And now the thing is, he has this reply d5, and that keeps him in the game and in fact is winning for black. The move he plays, rook e1, is not yet losing, but it's a move that has to be taken back, basically. I play king f2, and now he has to go back. And this evaluation of 0, 0, 0 is not correct. The engine just calls it a draw because he has to repeat moves. But after here, if he just goes back and I go to g1, creating a repetition, this is a position we started with, he's not required to repeat moves again. He can now play d5 and still have that advantage. So he just needed to, after king f2, he needed to take the move back and go go all the way back. He can't go anywhere else because I have this threat of check and picking up the rook in the corner. So he does have to retreat all the way back. Instead, he brought his other rook here, and now this is just losing because of this. The rook h8 tactic causes an interruption here. The king interrupts the defense of this rook. And now the best way to deal with this is not to take the rook right away. In fact, that's no good because my rook is hanging over here. But you take this rook, which you can do with tempo. It goes with check, and however he takes back, whether it's with the king or the knight, he chose to take with a knight. I get this rook. And now I've gone from losing to winning just like that. So those 2 rook moves, the lining up the rooks on the e-file. Kind of a natural-looking way to proceed. But because of this rook h8 tactic, just was not working. And now actually keep the win for the rest of the game. I don't think there was that much interesting, so I'm just going to step through the rest of the game here. He got a pawn back, but if you watch the engine evaluation, I never let go of my winning edge. And it just takes a little time. There's not enough force on the board to actively mate the king. So you have to carefully push your pawns forward and watch out for tricks. I mean, these knights are very tricky. It might have been a good move here just to take off that knight and just have one knight against one rook. But anyway, I just kept pushing the pawns forward. And as long as I'm careful in doing this, this is going to be a win for me. And I was careful enough, and eventually we get to the point where he resigns right here. Yeah, let's see. King g7. Yeah, okay. Well, the engine is showing showing that I'm at least getting some queens here. Yeah, I guess he's going to have to give up material to try and stop this pawn. The pawn is already defended on the f7 square. I can bring my rook to the 8th rank and queen that, and he'll have to give up material to stop it. And his knights are not in a great position to stop it. Yeah, king g7. Yeah, now that the engine has found a mate in 12. I don't know if I would have found it, but I certainly would have gone on to win that game. So anyway, yeah, interesting game. Hope you guys enjoyed this video. Leave any comments you have in the section below, and I will see you again soon. Bye.